Wow, wow, wow. Ladies and gentlemen, the GNU may have fallen apart. The budget negotiations have come to a halt. I don't know if it's playing hardball or we've come to the end. ANC says we are doing it without you, DA. We're getting the budget done with someone else. That's hard, but basically they're saying GNU over. Hear for yourself, fresh off the SABC News.
Thanks for staying with us. It's still unclear if the budget that was tabled by Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana will get the nod. Godongwana tabled the budget earlier this month, but soon afterwards, the Democratic Alliance, remember, rejected it. Earlier today, ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula saying that the negotiations are currently taking place. So let's get the very latest now. Karabo Kakao, DA spokesperson, joins us live now for more. Karabo, good evening to you and thank you so much for your time. Have you reached an agreement?
Good evening, Osbongi, and good evening to your viewers. No, I can confirm that as of 1:30 today, there is no deal. Essentially, the ANC is telling us that they're not willing to hear anything that we're telling them that can be fixed with the budget, that will protect South Africans, that will grow the economy, create jobs, and bridge the inequality gap that exists in this country, which is what we've tabled. And they are threatening to end the GNU by seeking other partners outside of the partners in the GNU, ourselves in particular, to pass the budget. So it is very important, Usbongiwe, for South Africans to understand what is happening here. The Democratic Alliance has said VAT is not good for South Africans. And we've said the budget in its current form does not give South Africans an opportunity to grow the economy. But that there is an alternative way of making sure that that budget can be passed, that at the heart of it sees South Africans being able to put food on the table for themselves and their families. And instead of taking that, the ANC has chosen their own political arrogance. They've chosen political power and political control to protect the interests of the ANC, a 39% political party, mind you, instead of South Africans.
So,
and now the GNU is at risk of collapsing because of that.
Karabo, if I heard you correctly, you're saying that it's the ANC that's saying they are threatening to end the GNU.
Yes, the ANC says that they are going to be seeking somebody else outside of the GNU to be doing this, and which means that they don't want to work with us at all. And we don't want that to happen, obviously, because we understand that the ANC, South Africans are safer with the Democratic Alliance in it. There's no way you can choose the EFF or anybody else whose policies are disastrous for the country at the expense of the country.
If you're saying that the better option is yourselves, how do you move forward if you're not agreeing?
That's the thing. That's the point.
So the reality, though, Karabo, is that chances of this, things may get to a point where things collapse and it ends, whether you regard yourselves as the best option or not.
Yes, because they're refusing to work with us completely. They're not negotiating at all. They pretty much told us that it's either their way, the hard way, and we must find our way out of the equation, because they don't want to take simple solutions such as reducing wasteful expenditure within the government purse, which is a sensible solution to give, cutting down on corruption and fruitless and wasteful expenditure, which is a sensible alternative to give to them, having a pro-jobs and a pro-economic growth budget, which is a sensible alternative to give altogether.
Were those the only bargaining?
So I wonder, please tell me at the bottom, do you think this is still just part of negotiation? And now they're playing hardball and the DA is coming to the public so that they play, they get sympathy and it's all just negotiation. I don't see how these two will agree. I also don't see how the ANC can get the EFF to pass to help them with votes, because listen, unless they find an amazing spin, it's not in anyone's favor to have they helped to increase tax when the others didn't want to increase tax. the thing is, you can play all the emotive games, but when it comes to people's pockets, if you tell me one person is gonna take 100 rands from me and another one's gonna let me keep it, it really goes too much to bread and butter to try and, I mean, wow, wow. And of course, the only thing ANC can say is the DA doesn't want to do it because they're racist. Um, but it's a hard one here because it's about, and we're not racist because we want you to pay more so that we have priorities to run at a time when people have rejected you seriously in the last vote. So trust is only 39% of South Africans trust the ANC. So to say, no, we're increasing the money because we got your back. This is tough. I don't know. Do you think is this negotiation or is this for real? Let's hear you in the comments.
Tools that you put on the table.
So we put multiple things on the table. So from the onset, we were negotiating to say, what is the best framework that we can use to make sure that if you want to be able to tax South Africans, that South Africans won't be able to feel the pinch of the taxation altogether. And we said, if we are able to see in the next 3 years a reduction altogether, a relaxation of tax for South Africans, if you are able to make concessions on the on concessionings on our rail and freight in the port in Cape Town harbors, for example, which would be able to contribute about 5% of our GDP, which we're losing by them not being as active as they're supposed to be, then perhaps we can have a different conversation altogether. But it is ridiculous to not want to have a budget that is centered on making sure that South Africans can be able to benefit from a growing economy, and then still be bold enough to think you can charge the same South Africans more money for putting food on the table and basic essentials.
What about the suggestions,
we need
though?
to look at economic policies.
Pardon me. What about the suggestions, though, that this was more about politics than it was about the poor of the country? And I ask this because there is a view from, of course, some who are saying that you were using the NHI, the Bella Act, as a bargaining chip to say that you want these gone in order for you to be able then to back this particular budget. And that's where possibly the sticking points could have been.
That is absolutely not true. There's no such. Let me tell you why I say so, right? The Bella Act was never part of the conversation because you would know that the minister who's currently responsible for rolling out regulations relating to the act is a DA minister. So we're fine. Sibiwe is busy with whatever she's busy with, and we'll be able to review when she's done. So that was not part of the conversation. The issue of the NHI, we agreed that the NHI was going to be off the table as far as the medium-term budget statement is concerned. And you would know that in the communication from government, in the MTBP, that it wasn't there. To our surprise, we saw that there was a smuggling in altogether via a gazette about 5 weeks later of that altogether. And in a separate communication, we raised the issue to say, but this doesn't make sense. We agreed that we are not going to be dealing with this matter right now with the NHI. We're not going to have it as part of their priorities. So why is it there altogether? So what the ANC is doing here by selling propaganda is trying to shy away from taking responsibility of the fact that the budget as it stands does not work for South Africans. The budget as it stands does not increase revenue collection. The budget as it stands does not expand our economy, and it doesn't safeguard South Africans. And because they politically cannot spin their way out of it, the only best solution that they can is to try to spew propaganda to say the Democratic Alliance wants concessions here and there about other things. So that's just not true.
Are the negotiations over? Is this it?
Yeah.
So are you prepared then for the possibility that if you're not finding each other, you're prepared for the possibility of going back to the opposition benches?
Look, if we must, sure, but that's not what we want. Again, I want to reiterate this. Again, at the heart of why the Democratic Alliance entered the government of national unity is the understanding that the ANC is incapable of themselves being able to lead this country into an economic trajectory that benefits South Africans. They've shown us in the past 31 years that they're unable to do so. And we know for a fact that if they were to work with the EFF, that would even result in a more...
All right, so that's where we are, folks. That's where we are. Please let me know. Press a like and then go and gling gling. And then go at the bottom, tell me, is this, are they playing let's see who blinks first? Or do you think the ANC is going to stick their foot down and the DA, and or do you think you know who's going to blink first? Let me know. But as we heard, they're not doing it. But I can't end it without reading something. So here's something I want to say to you as a believer. The one thing you want to hear from any party that you vote for, if you want to have some wisdom, you want to hear them saying, we want to make government smaller, because that always leads to prosperity. You want to hear them say, we want to make taxes smaller. That always leads to prosperity. You don't want to hear them saying we're adding another department and another committee and another presidential this, a presidential that. For instance, in South Africa, the presidency used to be a person in an office. Now there's a presidency, there's an employment, something in the presidency, it's never gone anywhere. And then there was a regulation, something in the presidency, it never went anywhere. But there's something that's just been put inside the presidency. Another one, especially things that have nothing to do with law and order. I mean, there's intelligence in the presidency. But if you see or hear a party, listen carefully to try here. If you hear them speaking of making government smaller, they are speaking about your success. If they promise a whole bunch of stuff, but what it all means is that they make government bigger, it is never in your favor. In South Africa, how you do it, you promise things, you promise justice, you promise whatever. You just make promises, especially if you can get to black anger, victimhood, and resentment. And of course, then the resentment blinds people. And then you just keep adding a minister, a deputy minister, a department of ministers, a department of deputy ministers. Oh, we have minister of electricity who in the presidency, and it just keeps going. You remember in 1 Samuel 8, so Samuel told all the words of the Lord to the people. This is when they wanted a king. I've got this on the side. And he said when they asked for a king, and he said, this will be the behavior of the king who will reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them for his own chariots and to be his horsemen, and some will run before his chariots. Blue light brigades. He will appoint captains over his thousands and captains over his 50s. Will set some to plow his ground and reap his harvest, and some to make his weapons of war and equipments for his chariots. You see what will happen? He will keep growing the cabinet, keep growing the ministers, that's captains. And they'll be, and he'll make sure he keeps state-owned enterprises at maximum. Some to make his war equipment. He will take your daughters to be perfumers, cooks, and you see what this is about. This is a government that's not releasing people to go do their own lives. It's saying everybody come here. We pay everybody a grant. Everybody keep growing state-owned enterprises. Launch a new one every 5 years. Grow the cabinet. Grow this. The state keeps pumping up. But let's see. Maybe it'll end up by saying, and you'll be very happy. And he will take the best of your fields, your vineyards and your olive groves and give them to his servants. Ooh. The king will expropriate land and give it to somebody, right? So he will consider your land his for his use, and he will take a tenth of your grain and your vintage and give it to his officers and servants. There's going to be tax after tax after tax after tax, but it's not going to go to law and order, incentives and rewards. It's going to go to who? His servants. It's going to go to comrades, and he will take your male servants and your female servants, your finest young men, your donkeys, and put them to his work. This is a state that keeps taking to itself, and it doesn't incentivize business, which is where people are. It doesn't incentivize small business, incentivize big business with tax cuts, with incentives. No, it brings it all here. Like now we have the Black Fund. What are they saying? They're not saying, bring us a certificate with a letter from a black business you have helped, and then we will give you a tax cut. No, they say, bring the money to me, to the fund, and we shall distribute. Right? He will take a tenth of your sheep and will be servants. And listen to what will happen when you get manipulated to vote for ever increasing governments, ever increasing tax, and you will cry out in that day because of your king whom you have chosen for yourselves. And the Lord will not hear you in that day. Why? Because principles punish or reward. You keep following the principle of a big government, wrapping it up in injustices of the past, redress, all of that stuff, and you never check, but wait, does this add more and more to government? Oh yeah, now there's a department of expropriation. Now there's a department of this, a department of that. Oh yeah, now we need a fund to come. Now we need tax. Never, ever fall for any government that says increasing tax is positive. Unless there's some reason you can see, maybe there's, I don't know, we got bombed and we're trying to build. But even then, lower taxes actually create bigger revenues for a government until a certain point. You cannot serve God and Marx, because you love one, hate the other, respect one, disrespect the other. So let's make history together. Let me hear your thoughts. You think the GNU's over? What do you think? Soon as you finish ringing the bell, cling, cling, and going down so you don't miss it, I'll hear from you. Let's make history together.